what was your thought? And this is what made me stop watching because I was like, you know what? This is just an ugly black eye on the industry. Let me just stop watching for 4 to 5 years. And I don't think I came back until CM Punk's pipe bomb.
Mm.
I think legit that's when I came back. So what were your thoughts on that?
Well, my initial thoughts was, oh, this is horrendous. This is horrible. I can't believe this is actually going on. There's a bit of like, oh my God, there's a stigma where this is expected of wrestlers and the industry, and is it bad to even be a viewer of this? But over time, because the narrative with WWE especially is let's place all the blame on that guy to distance ourselves from that and protect the business and the industry. And over time, I have heard and I've seen and read different perspectives, especially from the Benoit family, watching documentaries, seeing them speaking on it, seeing friends and others speak on it. There's some wrestlers like Chris Jericho who just say Chris Benoit's a monster and this and that and whatnot. Let's really think about what it is. And I started thinking about this a few years back, and I'm like, okay, so he's had head trauma. Now, a lot of people say they don't care because he plotted this and he did that and all this. But at the end of the day, if you have head trauma, if you're not all the way right in your head, that's going to lead to something that's uncharacteristic of yourself. Because before this happened, you asked about Chris Benoit, he's going to be an exemplified person. People are always going to always say things complimentary about him and how much of a great guy he is. But after this happened, it was like he was a devil himself. But he's been having this head and concussion and all these issues mentally due to his one of his finishing moves is a headbutt off the top rope. And he's been doing that over 10, 15, 20 years. And that impact over time, I mean, they said with the autopsy that his brain, it wasn't normal. The size of it, the look of it, it wasn't normal. So can that influence an action of a person, make you feel like you're questioning yourself, make you feel, kind of disrupted mentally with your perception of reality? These are things that are very possible. We're talking about mental health with a lot of people these days, but back then he's going through his stuff, and on a different level, as he had to take drugs to painkillers to reduce the pain in his body that he was experiencing working that hectic 300 a night a year a night schedule that he's had. So but Chris Benoit did a heinous dastardly crime, but I never like to just keep it there. Like everybody looks at the guy that went into the store to hold up and he shot somebody. But what were the actions that led that person to that lifestyle, to that moment? Did we see that that person wasn't taken care of as a kid? That person was brought up in a more negative situation. So, what do we expect the outcome to be? So, the same thing I am looking at with Chris Benoit. He did this crime, but what happened in his life? We know about the concussions, we know about the head trauma and the injuries, and will that take any kind of action or role in what he did? Some people say no, but again, I feel like it has to do with the mind, and if that's not right, I could see how that could end up being that way. Maybe he felt a certain way, but because of his condition of his brain, it just made him go over the top, making him feel like even though this is wild and he's mad, it made him act on it because he's just not right mentally. So I don't think it's fair how the wrestling world just dumps on Chris Benoit. And it can't. I can't. It took a lot of years for me to start thinking like that, because from the very beginning, Vince McMahon was like, "Oh, he's a monster," or this and that, and they just really just didn't even leave anything open for Chris Benoit. Like there was none of his side. There was none of anything. There was just he's bad, he's trash. And I don't think that's fair. Chris Benoit, again, deleting his matches, not showing it, blurring his face out in certain DVDs and whatnot. I don't think that's cool at all. Because he still did what he did. He did some great matches. And like now we're trying to erase him from history, which that don't make no sense. We don't even do that to Hitler. So yeah, that was that's my point of view on it. I don't know what you think.
I respect that point of view. Um, but I will say this. Me personally, I think that he is a monster because we all have trauma in life, and I want you to hear what I say. Um, not
Mm-hmm.
everybody doesn't have head trauma and things like that, but we all deal with some type of trauma. I've I've had thoughts of suicide plenty of times, but never did I think, you know what? Let me kill my wife and my 7 or 8 year old son in the process. I think that I do agree with one thing. I don't think they should have wiped him, erased him out of history because it's there. We know we saw it.
Yes.
We saw the WrestleMania 20. We cried at the WrestleMania 20. We were happy for him at WrestleMania 20. But that's the wrestling side of him. See, I can separate the two. The wrestler Chris Benoit, I think, is one of the greatest ever.
Yep.
But Chris Benoit, the man, to me, is a monster, and that's what supersedes everything that he'll do. His wrestling career means nothing to me because of that one act that he did, and and that's why I stand with it. And I agree, man. Sometimes, I mean, a lot of times we don't have enough grace for people, but in this instance, I can't have grace for a man that kills his wife and his son. I mean, you and in the way he did it is one
Mm-hmm.
thing if it was is one thing if it was an act of rage and he shot him, boom, or he stabbed him, boom. He put his wife he put his son in the crippler crossface.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what has to be going through your mind as your 7 year old is in your wrestling move, probably
Yep.
screaming and begging for his life. So to me, he is a monster, and if there is a hell, I hope that he's burning in there because people
See,
like that deserve to be burned up good.
but that's the thing, though. That's the thing that screams to me that if he was in his right mind, that wouldn't have happened. I don't feel like if he was not a wrestler or if he had retired earlier or whatever, to where his condition, because it has to be. I don't think that I'm Chris Benoit and I'm going to kill people. Like I don't think that that would have happened if his brain damage wasn't there. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I don't know. But it just seems odd that a guy that's been showing for decades to be a certain way to then his health goes south, his mental health and everything else goes south, and then he acts that way. I don't think that would have happened had he had not been that way. And he was also shooting up, because he was doing steroids, and he had all kinds of things going, prescription painkiller drugs. He had a lot going on. I'm not saying, oh God, we need to feel sorry for him and all that stuff, but I just think that it's like heavy hate on Chris Benoit, heavier than the hate that Vince McMahon got for killing pretty much Owen Hart.